What's up, people? Well, it's that time of year again when the days are getting shorter, the leaves begin to change color, people start gulping down pumpkin spice lattes like they're Riley Reid in the middle of a circle jerk, and the perpetually offended begin lecturing you on the appropriate way to enjoy Halloween. We see it every year, the woke brigade screeching over what is or isn't suitable as a costume. Whether it's racism, transphobia, or any number of made up grievances, these wet blankets come out with lists of harmful and offensive costumes that everyone should avoid because.
They'll give us boo-boos on our feelings!
But the one taboo we see that apparently must be avoided at all costs come October 31st is cultural appropriation. Now, for those unenlightened out there, the Oxford Reference defines cultural appropriation as a term used to describe the taking over of creative or artistic forms, themes, or practices by one cultural group from another. It is in general used to describe Western appropriations of non-Western or non-white forms, and carries connotations of exploitation and dominance.
Ah, yes!
There it is. Western appropriations of non-Western or non-white forms. That old monolithic white West. Always the oppressor, never the oppressee. Well.
And I want to tell you a story.
So briefly, what we know today as Ireland, Scotland, and the Isle of Man were once inhabited by an ancient tribalistic people known as the Gaels. For the better part of a millennia, their descendants who populated these lands would fight against a mighty empire to maintain their way of life. Scotland, the Isle of Man, and a portion of Ireland would eventually come to be ruled by the British Empire. But in spite of English Protestant attempts at eradicating their culture, Gaelic traditions would continue to be practiced throughout these lands even to this day. One such tradition was the annual celebration of Samhain, one of the sacred 4 yearly festivals. In short, it was celebrated on the evening of October 31st and marked the end of the harvest season and the beginning of winter, a time when the boundary between this world and the other world was at its weakest, and spirits could more easily cross into ours. Fires were lit, the spirits of dead ancestors were welcomed home, and food was left out for their appeasement lest bad luck befall the household in the coming year. This last custom appears to have later evolved into the practice of guising, where individuals would go door to door, dressed as the souls of the dead to collect food on their behalf, and further developing into Samhain being dubbed Mischief Night for the pranks by those imitating malevolent spirits. The Irish and Scots would bring these customs, including the carving of turnips into ghastly-faced lanterns, to the New World during periods of mass emigration to North America, culminating in the Great Famine of the mid-19th century that saw 1 million Irish die and 1 million more flee their homeland, a great many of them to Canada and the United States. Though they weren't always warmly welcomed, American attitudes towards them generally softened over the decades, and throughout the 20th century, the ancient traditions of Samhain would evolve into the hugely popular holiday of Halloween, which Americans alone are expected to spend over $10 billion on this year. With that history lesson, I think you can see what I'm getting at. Here we have an historically oppressed people that have their holiday, whose roots run to the deepest reaches of their culture, bastardized and converted to some multi-billion-dollar-a-year corporate cash grab. But no one mentions that part. Instead, people piss and moan over how other cultures might be upset by what someone wears whilst usurping Gaelic traditions. Stop and think about what kind of uproar we'd have today if, say, some holiday of the Yoruba people had found its way into the zeitgeist of the modern Western world and subsequently had it turned into a license for Nestle to print money. You know damn well some upper-middle-class white woman would be wringing her hands, calling for anyone not of the diaspora to cease any and all celebrations. And I've said in my personal life that if we wanted to end cultural appropriation on Halloween, we could start there. But that wouldn't be very inclusive. And nor is it something in which I believe. My simple solution to this whole discussion would be, wear whatever the fuck you want, be it Native American headdresses, kimonos, sombreros, or Rastafarian dreadlocks. Wear what you want, and if anyone wants to call you out on it, tell them it's just in the spirit of the holiday. All right, peace everybody.